2025 Building Emergency Area Communications Operations and Networks exercise. Beacon will be the name of the exercise going forward. April 23rd is a Thursday in 2026. That is our planned next event, April 23rd. And I hope you really will help us get the word out, not just for radio operators. We really want CERT team folks to be involved in this, in part because we are implementing the scenarios are intended to implement our mutual aid plan for not just for radio operators, but also for our OA partners, so our operational area partners. So we will be getting the word out. We've already started contacting some of the larger CERT groups, and we do expect some of them to be participating. So originally, we gave this particular presentation. Greg Waters and I do these typically together. And by the way, we will be at Pacificon presenting some of the follow-up analysis from the after action report and also inviting comments from folks. And so there's an opportunity to continue that discussion about what we learned and how to implement it. But I want to talk a little bit about the exercise planning process, because we've done this very differently this time than what we did in the planning events for Golden Eagle. So you may remember in the Golden Eagle exercises from a few years ago, we began the process of incorporating volunteer radio operators into the exercise with the career professionals. We found that though that there was kind of some missing participation. Weren't really sure exactly what that was all about, but we decided instead, or I should say Greg decided early on as part of the exercise planning process, to put together people from the radio community onto the standing committee to plan, as well as developing the situation manual, and in a couple of other areas. And those other two areas are the Operational Area Support Task Force to help get the word out, but also to assist OA partners who maybe aren't that familiar with how volunteer radio works. And then also in the After Action Review Task Force. These are all volunteers, by the way. The only career person who's being paid to do any of this, to my knowledge, is Greg. And the fact that Greg was able to participate with us really not only sends a very strong message to our agency partners, but it also enables us to follow a FEMA designated training regimen, formally called HCEEP. And I forgot what that acronym stands for. If any of you in the audience happen to know what that is, you're welcome to speak it out. But basically what that means is that by following the FEMA rules for HCEEP compliance, it actually puts this training exercise into the realm of agencies can be reimbursed with federal dollars for having their career staff be involved in this, but also they get dollars from the government for having their volunteers participate. This is an important thing for you to know if you're having any resistance from your career staff, that there's that HCEEP compliance. If they understand what that is, it's enough said. They will know that there's value, dollar value, literally. So we had exercise objectives, of course, to test the communication systems. But those tests of the communication systems actually was really meant to be done prior to the exercise day. The coordination and practicing protocols and procedures, evaluating message clarity and accuracy, as well as identifying weaknesses and areas of improvement, and promoting interagency collaboration. Those were the main things of the exercise objectives. So in assessing coordination, one of the things that we've discovered from past exercises, and any of you that have been involved in disaster response events knows that there's a lot to know that we don't know. And if you aren't practicing to overcome those obstacles that you don't know, then you stay stuck in not knowing. And during an actual scenario, we don't want people not to know how they're supposed to respond, how they coordinate. For example, even something as simple as receiving a message that is destined for an organization like a medical group within your EOC. How do you process that message? So a lot of us make assumptions about how to physically handle that message, print it out on a printer, and then where does it go from there? Well, every county is a little bit different. Humboldt County, uh, they are required to hand, I think it's Humboldt County is required, or sorry, Contra Costa County, I've been told, is required to hand it off to their planning department, and then planning figures out where that message goes next. In Alameda County, we do it differently. The radio operators receive that message, print it out, and hand carry it to, if it's destined to Highway Patrol, they walk it over to Highway Patrol. If it's Department of Transportation, they take it there, or the medical unit, walk it directly over there. We don't insist on having a career intermediary figure out what the next step of that message is. We think that it's our county career staff have informed us that their feeling is it works better if we just take that message directly to them. So that's how it works in Alameda County. If you're representing a different county, you need to find out from the folks that you're working with what their process is. And so that's part of what we mean by assessing coordination. It gets a little bit deeper than that. And any one of you that have been involved in this exercise probably found edge case scenarios where you weren't really quite sure where a message was supposed to go or how you were supposed to receive a return communication reply. And so those things were also addressed in the training. And of course, practicing protocols and procedures, more of a technical, it's affiliated with that assessing the coordination, but it's also somewhat technical. For example, you might receive a communication from WinLink, but how do you return the reply? Well, it's going to depend on the scenario, and you might not be the one to do the reply. It might actually be something that goes into whatever the platform that your county is using. We use Viochi in Alameda County. That may soon get replaced. I understand there's an RFP out. But the point is, it's important to understand what then is going to happen with that message and whether you as a radio operator or WinLink operator should be expecting a reply or whether that procedure is being handled in a different manner. Evaluating message clarity and accuracy is always a problem on voice, something that's easily overcome mostly in written messages over WinLink, which is one reason why I prefer WinLink. But the second part of that is that how people communicate is vastly different. If you yourself have ever received an email and got upset over it, only later to talk to the person who sent it and they say, I never meant it like that. And if that's never happened to you, God bless you. It just means that you've got an open mind and a heart of gold. But frankly, in chaos situations, in what I like to call the fog of chaos, people say things and do things not necessarily at their optimal best. And so the person sending the message, even in an exercise scenario that we know is just representative of what could happen, people do tend to get higher stress levels and higher levels of anxiety, and maybe saying things and doing things that don't really quite fit with your expectations as a recipient of a message. And you yourself should be aware of how you are reacting emotionally to messages. And remember always to think the best intentions there and then aim for clarity. And if you need to clarify or before you pass the message on, you need to ask for clarity, and sometimes it's physical locations, like they're asking for resources, but they didn't say where they want they want it delivered. Get on the radio and say, hey, update me with the location for this, and then fill that level of detail. We also always want to identify weaknesses and areas of improvement. I think that's true for any exercise. But then more than that, we really want to promote interagency collaboration. And here we're not just talking about the agencies that we serve, but the general public. So in an exercise scenario, we try to make them as realistic as possible so that you have to think through who is the ultimate destination for this message and also who is the ultimate beneficiary of this message getting to the right place and delivering the right content. And so uh, we do ask you to be thinking about that. Uh, of course, the post-exercise objectives were to, as I said earlier, test the communication systems, practice the protocols and procedures, maintain coordination, and interagency collaboration. And what I mean by post-exercise objectives is taking those things that you practiced and put them into practice in your daily encounters as a radio operator. We had a couple of pre-exercise test days. Um, it was, I think, really valuable, the feedback that we got on those pre-test exercise days, so one in February and another one in March. We'll do a similar type of weekend, typically Saturday, so that more of your radio volunteers can participate with it. And the whole point of that is to have people focus on not the exercise. We're not giving away scenario information at that point, but really just to make sure that they understand what the objectives are, and then also to test out their equipment, figure out what's broken with plenty of time, hopefully plenty of time to fix uh, whatever is broken. Interestingly, we had about 103 registered participants. That was up a few more from last year. We had 10 counties participating, and what we heard back from folks was that in the area where they checked the box that they strongly agreed were the highlights of being actively involved, plausible exercise, better prepared, and that the briefings were informative. And we hope to expand that list on strongly agreed, and your involvement will be key to that. So if you're able to participate in any of the upcoming planning discussions, we'll certainly get the word out when those planning sessions are scheduled. And your participation can really help us develop this program even further. A couple of snapshots. We had a bunch of different groups, CERT, ARES, RACES, ACS. We had some government folks. Some counties did a little better about getting participation from their agency affiliates, but we did notice pretty much in all 10 of those counties that participated, most had career staff that were involved at some level or another. What was interesting, though, is people were in the position. Some were brand new, never participated in certain areas before, or in a radio volunteer radio position before, and some had been involved for over 40 years, but the average was around 6 years. Their radio exercise experience ranged from 1 to 5 years. Their years in radio generally ranged 1 to 5 years. Years in ACS was greater than 0 years. So a lot of new folks participating, and age group 60 plus. Interestingly, with radio licenses and radio class, we had amateur shares. Some people had no radio licenses, so those were typically the affiliated groups or career positions. And then extra technician, and in some cases, no class. Okay, that came across funny. Everyone's got a little bit of class. Sorry, that was my attempted humor. I guess it didn't go over too well. The after action report format is meant to identify what happened and measure that against what was supposed to happen. So another way of saying what went well and what are the gaps and areas of need for improvement. The areas of improvement that most participants asked for was instructional, uh, standardized emergency management system, um, documentation, and then mission creep. And so what we extracted from that data was that maybe we weren't as good at getting the instruction material out to people. So there is a website. The website was maintained by Humboldt County. Humboldt County had time restrictions on how long that could be left up. So how soon we were able to get that out. And that meant that we were sending, in some cases, only sending that material out by email. Next year, we're changing that. We're actually going to be hosting it on our own platform and making that available year round. And so as soon as we start advertising the 2026 event, people will be able to register and collect the instructional material. The standardized emergency management system is SEMS. I think some folks were perhaps a little bit confused about what that actually is, and so we'll post some more information about that. And as I say, the documentation and so forth will be readily available now year-round once we figure that out. Couple of improvement elements on the improvement plan for the exercise is to do a tabletop exercise where we review SEMS. We'll add a SEMS chart in the situation manual, create a Reader's Digest situation manual, and update the quick reference guide, and add a frequently asked questions. And so if any of those things are of interest to you, feel free to shoot me your notes and I'll make sure that Greg and I incorporate that into the next event. Thursday, April 30th. I don't think April 30th. Oh, yes, actually, it could be. So I think I had the dates wrong. I beg your pardon. I will update you if I hear differently. But what I said earlier, scratch that. This is the date we're looking at now. So at this point, let me take some questions and comments, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to try to
Does anybody
stop
have any
sharing.
questions? I've got the microphone. Hi, this is Brian Cleese. I know we've traded some emails back and forth. I'm wondering, given the lead time, what ICS or SEMS courses would you recommend for folks to become familiar with the way the incident command system and SEMS is structured? And then a second question, I believe in the past year when I attempted to participate, the repeater being used was over at the San Leandro Sheriff Station. Is there any plans for some kind of repeater at the EOS here in Dublin, or what kind of coordination with the local repeaters like the Lark repeaters or the Sonoma Ridge repeater? Thanks.
Yeah, it's great question. I'm really glad that you asked that last one in particular. So let me address that one first, just because that's probably top of mind for most folks. The radio repeater you use should be the one that you normally use. And the reason that I say that is at the county level, um, we are at the county level, we are coordinating with all of the other agencies and groups. So, for example, Hayward Racy's contacting us would be having the conversation with us about how they may need a resource that they don't have locally available. So, in the FEMA guidance, they always say that a response to an emergency is local. meaning local people attending to local needs using local resources. And as you expand out from that local neighborhood, the expectation is that the neighborhood on this side is going to coordinate with the neighborhood on this side, neighborhoods helping neighbors to fulfill whatever their emergency needs are. So if you need a chainsaw in this neighborhood, you're not going to make that request up to the county, right? You want to make that request to the next neighborhood and branch out from there. And so so what I'm getting at here, just to summarize it, is although you may need to communicate with the county, most of your effort is really going to be directed within your city and within your neighborhoods. In terms of communicating with us, if you can't get to us by radio, you should be able to get to us by WinLink, because you don't need to connect to one of the Alameda County WinLink nodes. You just need to connect to any WinLink node. Any WinLink node, even if it's on HF and it's out in Utah, as long as it connects, we can also connect and receive your message. So we are making some efforts to stand up some additional radio equipment that will make it possible for you from Livermore to be able to connect directly by voice. We actually have a repeater on the 440 frequency, and you might want to try that out sometime to see if you can connect to us. So for example, on a Wednesday night, when we do our net check-ins, we normally link the 440 repeater to the repeater up on the San Leandro Hill. Try that out, see if that works for you. But in terms of our ability to contact you, if we can't contact you directly through our radio, we may try WinLink. And if either of those fails, we may try connecting with someone in Dublin and have them relay. So I don't know if Dublin's having any better experience with that. Hopefully that explains the radio contact part of that.
Just real quick, what was the frequency and PL tone for that 440?
Hey, Adrian, do you have that at your fingertips?
Yeah, I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, okay.
I'll put it in the chat for everyone.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks. And then the other part of the question, the first part of the question, or the first question you had about what, how do you learn about the FEMA management system? So there's, you guys probably had this drilled into your head. So it's ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800 are the primary courses. Those are all online and they're free. I think each one of those takes maybe 30 minutes to an hour to complete. And those are introductory courses on how the incident command system works. And so that'll give you a clue into how you fit into that. It doesn't specifically, oh, thanks for that. I see Adrian posted it in the chat there for you. So those are the primary courses. And then on the SEMS stuff, there is some material that's online. I don't know if we included any of that in our beacon exercise for 2025, but going forward, we will include that. So folks will have that. And then you should also be able to find that information online. Should be readily accessible. If you have any trouble finding it, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can't hunt it down for you.
Thank you.
Question from 86 KV. Where does the amateur radio emergency data net mesh fit into this, the Arden mesh?
So we chose not to feature that as part of the exercise because not everybody has access to Arden Mesh. So of the 16 counties in Region 2, there are only 3 counties that currently have Arden Mesh set up and configured in a manner that is actually usable. The rest of it's all on a wish list. So we decided not to have that figure prominently. There's good reason to for radio teams to invest their time and material in making Arden Mesh work. But at this point, it didn't feature prominently because it just wasn't being used enough. And for the same reason, we did not include things like FL Digi or FT8 or other digital means of communication. It was mostly we just wanted to focus on common tools throughout the 16 county region, what people had available, what they expect to use. And by the way, that also means FRS, GMRS, CB radio, whatever people have at hand, satellite internet, if they have it, they can certainly use it. There's no prohibition against using any of those technologies. They just were not featured as part of the exercise simply because our goal as auxiliary communicators is to get the message through by any means necessary. And that means that if you need to strap a message to a carrier pigeon, if that is going to work for you, then do it. If it means, radioing by voice to someone that's 2 blocks away from the intended recipient of the message, and then having them hand carry a written, ICS 213, whatever it takes to get the message through was the point of the exercise. What else?
Hey, Dan, Steve KJ6KEU. Thanks again for doing this.
Sure, Steve.
Question for you. Although I'm only a VHF, UHF kind of guy, and including WinLink, was there an HF component? I know there's a lot of club members that like HF strictly. And was there an HF on SSB, or was it strictly WinLink, or both? And how active was it?
So what we found is there are varying levels of expertise in the radio community with being able to run HF. And so we did exercise that part. We had specific objectives in mind, getting the different teams on HF that included both voice and WinLink. And then also for the stations that operate shares, that also is HF only. And so we did exercise those components, but what we found was HF still tends to be a bit of a specialization within the radio groups. And so part of our ask is those of you that are familiar with HF, make your knowledge available to the new folks that are coming on board, help them demystify and get comfortable with using an HF station. There were several opportunities to check in at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour just to do an HF check-in. We exercised shares for those that were able to do voice calls. We did that over shares, and for those that could also do WinLink over shares, we did that. And then there was also just regular shares over VHF and HF. Did you have a follow-up question about that? Because I feel my ears itching.
I don't, but I know the reason why I'm asking is I was wondering if it was strictly, if the HF component, even on SSB, was just strictly between, say, local municipality EOCs to Humboldt, which would be acting sort of like the state EOC, if that was a component of the exercise, or were they actively asking for resource requests or whatever other radio traffic can be? And did you have any statistics on after action reports of how that went?
Yeah, so I do have some information from the after action report, but we're still in the final stages of digesting that, and it'll still be a month or two before we have the final after action report completed. First of all, it's important, first of all, HF as a technology for communicating inside the county doesn't necessarily work for every county equally. So counties like Humboldt, where the topology in San Benito County also experiences this, they pretty much can only talk to each other in different parts of the county if they're using HF NVIS. So they don't, traditional VHF type communications is not very suitable inside the county for them. What we find in Alameda County is even if we're using NVIS, it's not necessarily going to be any more productive for us than VHF. And so we tend not to use it for local in-county communications, but obviously it's great for more long distance communications. So I don't know if that answered your question exactly. So if you have a follow-up for me, let me know.
No, I think you pretty much answered it. I know that during the Golden Eagle exercise in Contra Costa County, communicating between East County over by Richmond all to the Martinez EOC was they were attempting to use NVIS, and between East County and West County, and it was I think semi-successful, but it's all based on propagation, obviously.
Right. So that's kind of the other issue is VHF tends to be more susceptible to propagation issues, which can be weather or solar related, and so potentially a little less reliable than VHF. And for that reason, the East Bay Communications Systems supports the WA6 HAM, which is an interconnected radio system that, to my knowledge, helps everyone throughout Contra Costa County be able to reach, talk to each other. We don't really have anything similar like that in Alameda County, but you do have the opportunity to relay. So if someone out in Richmond, for example, needed to talk, they could relay to Oakland. Oakland could relay to county, or they could perhaps talk to one of their neighbors there in Kensington, for example, that has access to the WA6 HAM frequency, or they could just dial in to WA6 HAM and ask someone to relay. So we should not really be considering these radio resources as proprietary to an individual or to a group, but as a shared resource. And one of my objectives in the it's a kind of a long-term goal, probably not going to happen instantly. For some groups it will, but is to find public funding. That is having the agencies fund radio equipment. And I understand the radio equipment you guys are using for Livermore is getting a little aged. Am I confused about that, or have you guys recently replaced your equipment? Anybody know the answer to that?
Yeah, it's old.
It's old. Oh, okay, all right. There's no shame in admitting that. What I'm working on is to have the county reimburse the cities for investing in your radio equipment. There's two benefits to that. One of them is as city-owned property, you can't have individuals dictating who gets to and who doesn't get to use the equipment. So it'll as a public resource. The other element to that is it is essentially a continuous source of funding. So once the county agrees, it'll be part of the emergency communications plan for the county, meaning that they expect cities to not only fund the equipment that you need, but also give you access to training and access to other resources so that we can fulfill our mission to the community.
Dan, Brian, CAM6EMU with another question. What about connecting with Red Cross, Salvation Army, SaturnNet, and also the hospital net, if that's still an active thing or not?
So all of those things that you mentioned are still active, and those are things that individual teams really should get familiar with how to do that. In this coming year, that is the Beacon exercise for 2026, we've had people from American Red Cross, Salvation Army, and some others tell us that they plan to participate. Don't know what that participation is going to look like. It might be They're just, sitting at a couple of EOCs, helping people understand what the flow of communication might look like. But also we're hoping to get, communications plans that will include how our local volunteer radio operators, how those teams plan to interoperate with their local Red Cross. Now, it doesn't have to be on amateur radio, right? FRS and GMRS for supporting, local neighborhood operations is a very viable option. And maybe if there's a lot of chatter by in between American Red Cross and some other organizations, maybe it's best not to have that on the repeater, but maybe just on the simplex frequency. So we have to consider what radio congestion is going to look like. And there, we're looking to the local radio teams for some guidance. What does that look like in an actual disaster? We'll be exploring that in more details during the planning exercise, and we'll be reaching out to those partners to figure out from their experience what's happened. So what's happened in wildfires, what's happened in the hurricanes, what happened in Puerto Rico and other places that have experienced large-scale disasters. So we'll have some additional planning material for you during ready for the next exercise. And if you have content you want to see included, you can feed that to me or send it directly to Greg Waters if you prefer. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah, if you
Any more
have some more questions, speak up. Otherwise, I'll say a few words and then give you back your meeting.
Questions coming up?
First of all, you'll have to excuse me for my ignorance because my husband, KF6NBO, has been a member of LARC prior, and what information I have has been gleaned through him. My interest in it is not so much that I'm conversant in radio broadcast or communication systems that you guys have, but as a layperson, I'm very concerned with a number of things. I've been to your Pacific Cons and other things like that, and have heard different aspects of what communication can accomplish as far as helping out the community. Something that was brought to my attention recently, which I don't know if you have a role to play in it, but with a heightened sense of we have exterior outside of the U.S. Entities that are looking to disrupt certain facilities that we have that are sensitive, whether they're military sites, electrical facilities, water treatment plants, or that sort of thing. Does the amateur radio people play a role in security of any of those items or monitoring? Or, for instance, if something were attacked, this wouldn't be a disaster that you have talked about, like a hurricane or anything of that sort. When something locally happens, is anybody locally on top of keeping track of those things? And how they play a role in helping assist with such things as they occur? Some of these things have already happened nationwide in different spots, and here in California with PG&E, for instance, one of the substations was attacked not too long ago, and they've never caught, and PG&E is keeping mum about it. But this is something that I think the community needs to be aware of, that when there are things that are happening, our eyes and ears should be open for stuff that's going on. Do you guys play a role in any of that?
Yeah, good. Very good. Excellent question. So a couple points. First of all, the person that attacked the PG&E substation, I believe, has been identified and arrested. So if you're talking about the PG&E substation attack that happened, was it 2 years ago? In any event, that person was identified and arrested. If there was something more recent, I hadn't heard about it. So how volunteer radio figures into this is we're not expecting you to carry rifles and secure power substations. And I don't know, do you guys watch Netflix? Have you seen this? Arnold Schwarzenegger has a new series out on there called FUBAR, and it's funny and entertaining. But it does also kind of point up some of the threats that we might experience as a country against organized crime looking to disrupt the U.S., whether it's a nation state or organized crime or some other wannabe faction. What's at risk? And I myself participated in some risk assessment studies where we look at things like dams, traffic signaling, aircraft, you know what I'm trying to say, flights and all of that stuff. And in any event, the point is we're not expecting volunteer radio operators suddenly to become a new magical police force. But what we are expecting you and hoping that you will carry this out is to deliver situation reports. So when communications fail, one of the things that happens is our agencies become blind to what's going on in the neighborhoods. And so your ability to deliver two-way communications to the neighborhoods enables the flow of communication, whether it's risk assessment, like a chemical plant that's caught on fire, or towers shaken loose and in danger of toppling over, things of that nature. And of course, if you witness something more nefarious of a terrorist type activity, or even just crowds getting out of control, that's all good, useful information to report up. Not expecting any of you to get involved to try to stop any of that, but just simply to report it so that resources at the next level up can take some action. So we allow our EOC partners to figure out what the priority is to respond to the events that are reported up. But the more accurately that you can report, the better it is. And so that's another reason why I strongly encourage you to get to know how to use WinLink, because not only can you type in the words and cut down on the voice traffic, but you can also attach photographic evidence and send that in a format that we can easily print out if we need to, or forward electronically to our agency partners. So did that completely answer your question, or did you have a follow-up?
Good. No, I got it. Thank you.
Great. All right, very good. So
one other quick question.
yeah, please.
How is DMR fitting into this? Is that being useful for the beacon exercise? It's digital mobile radio.
Sure. Yeah. I understand what you mean. We operate DMR at the county level, and we know that several other counties also have DMR. And whether they do as a team or just individually, people knowing how to use DMR, and also D-Star. So all those digital technologies are great, but they have one common failure point, and that is that potentially the internet could be down. And if you don't have good connectivity to the internet, so if your repeater stack doesn't have Starlink or microwave connection out to the internet, or some other type of connection to, say, for example, I think in Contra Costa County and Alameda County, we have access to and maybe San Francisco County also have access to the Arden Mesh backbone network. So if you don't have those connections out to the internet and you're only reliant on DMR, that could be problematic. DMR and D-Star offer great resiliency for a number of different reasons. For example, while planning or responding to an event that maybe is happening across 16 counties, all of those counties, if they're using DMR or D-Star, have the ability to communicate to all of us with a handheld, and don't necessarily have to use an HF base station or communicate through relay. So there are some great technology advantages that we could apply, but at this point, because most of the groups either don't have it or haven't quite figured out a way to make it more resilient, it does not feature as as a technology in the exercise. We're really reliant on the technologies that we know that work. And so as those technologies become more prevalent and groups have figured out how to make it more resilient and useful in an actual disaster, until that happens, it probably won't feature prominently. But it's great technology. I happen to love it. I think it's really cool. I get on my D-Star radio every once in a while and get on one of those call rooms. What do they call them now? In any event, I'll get on there. I might be talking to people in several different countries all at the same time. We're not saying much, just, hey, how's it going? They might hit a topic that strikes a nerve, and we may talk about that for a little bit. I think it's really cool. The long distance nature, how it becomes more inclusive. I think it's pretty cool.
Okay, question here. Jim, KJ6KEU. My radio life, for the most part, has been monitoring, not. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. That last
Jim,
sentence.
can you hear me?
I can hear you a little better. Yeah.
My radio life has been spent mostly in monitoring, not in communicating. And I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have like a sub frequency, either VHF or UHF, dedicated to just passing on information to avoid the clutter of voices talking about situations. Just some frequency it's been widely disseminated, that radio operators know about. They can hear about danger areas, the hospitals are open, maybe food and water distribution, that would repeat over and over as the situation develops.
So that's an interesting question. I'll have to put some more thought into that, exactly what the recommendation should be to our different counties. One of the drawbacks of living in California is generation to generation, we don't really have much experience with disasters the way that they do, say, in the East Coast, where hurricanes are a multi-time per year event, and generation to generation, they're likely to experience, 2 or 3 major catastrophic wide-scale events where they get to put into practice all these things that we in California can only talk about and plan for. And so I can call on my national partners, the folks that do operate in those areas, and ask them, how do you deal with this? How do you plan for that? The best that I can tell you right now is that in Alameda County, we have not only the repeater frequencies that we use for collecting and disseminating information countywide, but also we operate about 5 different simplex frequencies. And the radio teams in Oakland, Fremont, Hayward, San Leandro, and probably you guys also have simplex frequencies that you can share information, digest what's going on, and then decide whether it's worth disseminating out to a broader audience. It actually can potentially create a problem if you have random people that are trying to communicate a hazard, in part because if it becomes routine and you're not fact checking, it could be a potential security gap where someone, for example, might be urgently saying something's happening over at blah, 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 and we need to send resources right away. Get people over there right now. It needs to happen. And what they're really doing is diverting resources away from something that they're trying to get away with. So a security protocol needs to be in place on how to verify the information that you're getting by way of radio or of WinLink. You might be thinking that you're receiving a message from a trusted source, but you need to verify it before you take action on it. And so rumor control and other reasons for validating your message traffic needs to form part of that. And then how mechanically you get the information in and how you get it out is really going to need to be dependent on what resources you have available. So we might have 5 simplex frequencies, but we may not have available people that are able to monitor those simplex frequencies at the same time that they're also on our main frequency. And so you do have to consider what limitations are at play and how you inform your volunteer radio community, how they are supposed to interact with you. But it's a great question. Great question.
Yeah, this is John, WX6G. Just thanks for posting the 440 frequency, but what time does the repeater get activated and what days and time?
Yeah, 1900 hours on Wednesdays, every Wednesday.
Wonderful, thank you. Any more questions in the room? Are there any questions online? Go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Not seeing any. George, back to you.
Thank you, Dan. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you in the future with exercises that are coming up.
Yeah, very good. So I look forward to having you involved, and I appreciate all of you showing up for today's event. Appreciate it. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Send them to me.